Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously, this is an interview episode, so you have an amazing story to hear today with the person that I have on. But also, this person focuses on really doing things the right way as far as building out someone's business, growing connections, growing your marketing efforts, and showing people really that work-life integration side of things, where people end up diving too much into one side of it and you get pulled from one, you get pushed into another, and then it just ends up having you feel not just disjointed, but also displeased. And you should love what you do, both from a personal and professional standpoint. Now, I'm also kind of biased here because she's an amazing friend and client of mine. We met through mutual connections where I just so happened this individual was looking for some help with LinkedIn to kind of bring her, her light and herself on there, which we're now working on. But again, we're going to get into all that and more. So Frenchie Ferenczi, welcome to today's episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we got a lot to jam out on in today's episode. And obviously you are known for certain things with where you are right now. But my bigger question that I would want to kind of lead off with is, if you can rewind the tape, what do you recall in your journey to where you are right now? What do you feel was the catalytic moment for you where kind of like your eyes were opened up, your heart was opened up, and you're like, you know what? I need to kind of lean into this, whatever is going on, to see what's on the other side of it. What was that moment for you?
Yeah. Well, I worked in startups. And so early on in my career, I kind of had this feeling of like, I should be running my own business, right? Like I was surrounded by founders. And I was kind of waiting for my $1 million idea to like poof, just appear. And then like all the VCs would want to back me and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to fall 2020 and like leaving the startup that I was at the time. And there was a lot of kind of moments, but the big moment was the realization that I didn't really want to have investors. I wanted to have more control and more freedom than sometimes outside investors can give you. And so then I kind of felt lost for a minute. I was like, well, what is my $1 million idea then? And this might sound trite, but I was like, wait a minute, maybe I can be my own $1 million idea, right? Maybe my 10 years of experience building and scaling startups can actually be the thing that I can use to build my own business to help others. And so I had this, it was kind of a choice point. I was interviewing for jobs. I was also home with my first son, wanting to have another son or another child who happens to be a son. And I was kind of like, I just got to try it. And truly from one day to the next, I was like, oh, I'm starting my own business. And I from day one, I talked about it as though it was like matter of fact. It wasn't an experiment. It wasn't a maybe let's see what happens. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And I think that moment and that level of clarity is what has kind of allowed me to grow effectively and quickly. It was like, there was no second guessing it from day one.
The interesting thing is, for those that are listening to this, the startup community or startup aspect, I love the correlation to what you're doing now, because and I'm not going to make any assumptions here, and I want you to kind of chime in on this, but I'm assuming that the lessons that you learned in helping startups grow primed you for helping entrepreneurs start up their own business, because it's one and the same. The strategies, the techniques, the analytics, the KPIs, all those things that go into growing large conglomerate startups are the same core principles that, a smaller business like yours and mine has to do in order to grow and scale. Am I right with that?
I think you're totally onto something. I think that the other really significant piece there is kind of the inverse of that, which is that a lot of the mistakes that you see in startups in larger organizations are also mistakes that we're creating, that smaller business owners are creating within their own small businesses. So one thing that I observed when I was working in startups was so many people working on so many things with no level of clarity about the business impact that work had. People would be checking off their to-do list. Or great example of this is the customer service team. I was running the customer service team, and it felt like the job of the customer service team was to respond to emails. But the true job of a customer service team is to gather insights and data about your audience and deliver them back to the organization to use that information to do better work, to reach your audience better, and all of that. And a lot of those loops weren't being closed. And so people were just like taskmasters. And I see that a lot with smaller business owners and individual solopreneurs. People, we find ourselves often being like, oh, I just have to post on Instagram, and it's like, well, why? What's the benefit? What is the real impact of that? Before you just do it, because you should, even if you should, define why you should, get clear on that part, and connect to the numbers and to the business benefits of you doing that work.
Now, the other thing that I want to kind of ask you is, if you were to kind of break down all the different responsibilities that you had in working in the startup community, customer service, all that stuff, what would you say of those experiences that you learned on the corporate side of things, which experience impacted you most professionally and personally that has now allowed you to kind of step on the other side of the street where you're, working with more entrepreneurial minded people to get them to the levels that they're looking to get to?
Totally. So one, I think, is managing teams and coaching teams and developing leaders within organizations, right? And learning how to have those conversations. I think that there's a lot of yes coaches out there. I don't consider myself one of them, right? Like, I'm not afraid to have tough conversations and to hold people accountable if and when that's necessary. But I think that the other piece, and this is far more tactical, is the idea of really centering your business and your marketing and your operations around the customer journey, and really thinking about it through the lens of what do your potential clients and current clients need in order to stay engaged with you, your business, and what you're doing, and obviously with the goal of buying and or converting them into something. What I see a lot, for example, just to go back to that Instagram example, is people feeling like they need to post on Instagram or dance on Reels. But then when we dig into it, their ideal clients are actually on LinkedIn or a different platform, or they're not even on social media platforms. And so really thinking about, almost in a storytelling way, starting through what kind of story, when you have a customer who's been working with you, let's just say for a year and a half, what story do you want them to tell? How did they find you? How did they get to know you? How did they get to know, like, and trust you? What motivated them to buy from you? How did you deliver to them in a way that continued that trust, right? That really made them believe that you were, like, truthful and honest about what you could deliver. And then what opportunities did you give them, or could you give them, to continue supporting you, as well as you supporting them?
So with everything that you're doing now, and obviously the lessons that were learned, with a lot of the new entrepreneurs that are out there that you're helping, you're assisting, as far as really building their businesses, what would you say is the biggest bottleneck you have seen or heard from the people that you're working with, that is almost like a reoccurring theme? And once that bottleneck is revealed, that you're going to reveal in a second, what's a simple thing someone can do to kind of move past that or work through it in a way where it's going to help their business and not hurt it?
Mm-hmm. So the most common thing I hear is, I don't really know where to start, right? I think a lot of people have a 3-year vision, a 5-year vision, maybe a 10-year vision. I feel like 10-year vision is often less concrete, which totally makes sense. But then they freeze because the question becomes, well, what do I do today to help me get there? And they're like, I have no idea. And so then, right, then often what happens, like they just don't do anything. And that is when it gets problematic because you keep kind of getting in the way of your ability to hit those goals. And so I think that there's a couple antidotes to that I really focus on, but the biggest one is helping people build out a strategy and really thinking about what data and insights you have to inform what your strategy should be. And I don't overthink strategy as a concept. I think strategy as a term gets weaponized a little bit. And I'm like, your strategy is your plan. Like it's your map to getting where you want to go. And anyone who tries to keep like, the idea of strategy like veiled or, like a big secret is just doing annoying things, in my opinion. And so I really am focused on helping people narrow down and pick their priorities based on that information that they have, right? So for anyone listening, what I would say is the easiest thing to do is look at what has worked in the past, or look if you don't have enough evidence from past sales or anything like that, look at what has worked for colleagues or, even just your best educated guess and try to do more of that. Prioritize that above everything else, and then measure again and look at that information. Is this approach still working, right? And you see this a lot with launches where people might experiment doing a live launch or just an email launch or something like that. And over time, when you see some of the bigger players in the online business world, they do the same launch over and over again because it works and it works for them and their business. And I think that a lot of times newer entrepreneurs feel like you need to approach everything in a new and different way. Like it needs to be novel all the time, which in some ways is more fun. But I think the truth is that growing your business is really boring and it's a lot of doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting like optimizing it more and doing it again and trying again. So I think at the simplest level, think about your strategy, make a plan, even if it changes. And the core of that plan should always be doing more of what has worked for you so far.
What do you feel was a unexpected challenge for you as a business owner when you kind of left the startup world and the corporate side and went into the entrepreneurial side of things, helping people? What was an unexpected challenge that you had to face that you didn't realize that you would have to, based on all of the, I would guess, normal nuances and challenges that people always talk about, but this one wasn't?
Yeah. I think the most notable thing, I'm a strong executor. I like to get things done, right? I can make a lead magnet, I can put up a landing page, like all of that doesn't get in my way. But I think that I thought that just by creating content and putting it out there, suddenly people would be like flocking to me, right? Like it was just that easy. And that was, I think,
that's the if I build it, they will come approach, right?
Yes, exactly. And I was putting out what I thought was good content. And so I was kind of like, well, I'm marketing, right? Like here I am, I'm doing the marketing thing. And, how come people aren't coming my way? And so what I really kind of took away from that was like, because frankly, when I saw some of the, marketing teams because I wasn't on the marketing side really at in startups, even though now I consider myself a marketer because everything is marketing. But when I saw the marketing team, I was like, they just post things on Instagram and then everybody, just shows up and buys or what have you. And not that I simplified it that much, but I think that I just thought people would like what I had to say and that my credibility from working in startups and all of that would have an impact. And over time, I really realized that I needed to put a lot out there, but I also needed to do more work to pull people in. And that was more of a stretch for me, right? Like I said, I'm good at the execution side, but I guess what we would call visibility side, that has to go along with what you put out there. That was harder for me.
So Chat GPT has been a huge topic of conversation. And it was crazy. Nancy and I were watching a video the other day. It took them 5 days to get 1 million users, which is actually, I think, the fastest in history. And the company is now valued at I think they said $29 billion.
Crazy.
So AI is definitely becoming, I mean, it's here, and it's, just like social media was kind of like on the rise, and now it's here obviously forever. I think AI is also another aspect of business now that is not going anywhere. It's only going to improve. It's only going to get better. But there's, two sides of it. And I would love to get your thoughts and feelings on this, because there are fears that as the AI, from a marketing and content creation standpoint, evolves, it's going to take the job of copywriters. It's going to take the jobs of a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and agencies. So number one, what's your feeling on AI and how it can be used to build a business?
Hmm.
But second to that, where do you see AI going in the future as something that's either going to be impactful for entrepreneurs
Hmm.
like you and me, or damaging in the same respect?
Yeah. So I haven't used a lot of AI yet, but I have used it a couple more recently because I'm working on my launch and I need hooks for all my social media captions, for example. And so I'll put something in and it'll spit out several ideas, and that's super helpful for me. I've never yet directly copied and pasted, but sometimes just having more options, it starts to give you a sense of how else you can say your thoughts. So that's been so helpful for me. And I'm excited about it. I think that I never really want to be the person that's like, this is terrible idea. I want to be open to it and explore the benefits because I think there can be benefits. Um, I it's interesting because you should try this experiment. If you ask ChatGPT to say anything negative about technology, so far we have not been able to get it to say anything bad about technology, which is very interesting. And so my thought about it is that it can be a good starting point, but what sells, especially in the online business world, a lot is yourself and your personality and your unique voice and your unique approach, and getting that to get translated into AI. I think eventually it'll probably happen. I just don't know that it will happen immediately. So I think we have some room for that. So I would say use it, but also make sure that it sounds and feels like you. Don't just assume that because there's words on a page, they will sell for you, in the same way that I assume that because I was putting posts on Instagram, people were going to come buy for me, or buy from me. So I think that's just an overall thing. I think down the line, it will be helpful, but also it's going to create even more content, if that is possible, for us to filter through, for us to need to read through, because more people will feel empowered to post long form, to post content. Anyone who was hiding or avoiding writing in the past may not feel that same need. And I think it's really going to require us to be even more critical thinkers, for us to even get better at analyzing and kind of just pulling out the information that's not serving us, that's not helpful. And so I think that the damaging side will be that there's going to be potentially even more misinformation or what have you floating around. But the positive side is that I think that it'll give a voice to more people who might need it, who might not have it yet. And I think that what's possible now is almost going to feel very rudimentary. Like, I think it's going to be like Snake on your Nokia phone in, 10, 15, 20 years. People are going to be like, remember when we just put stuff in Chat GPT? Um, and so I think that there's definitely a lot of opportunity there and a lot of ways to ideally, hopefully, leverage it for good.
So another hot topic is paid marketing versus
Mm.
organic marketing. Now, Nancy and I pride ourselves on focusing more on the organic marketing side, warm marketing side, where, building our list that way. But there's a lot of people, and again, I think that the paid marketing side is such a, I don't know, I think I consider it almost like a black hole, because
Mhm.
you you hear all the and dollar ad spend and dollar spend that people are paying for, paid marketing to get known, this, that, or the other. what's been your experience with paid marketing and advertising versus unpaid, doing it more warm and organic? And what do you recommend to people when they're just getting started in building their business?
Yeah. So I've dabbled in paid marketing. I've done very little of it. I've boosted posts on Instagram, which has done nothing for me. I mean, aside from more likes, which doesn't mean anything if people aren't buying. Um, I I don't necessarily see it as such a binary thing. I think it's very dependent on whether you're looking to have a low price, high volume business where you're really focused on being almost 95% a marketing machine and everything else is kind of secondary to that, versus a higher ticket type of business that really you to sell, let's just say a $2,000 product, you need to have a personal relationship. That ad is not going to drive that, right? So it can be top of funnel, but even then, so that's kind of high level my experience with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se. I think advertising can work. Personally, if I see ads for products, sometimes my curiosity is piqued. When I see ads for programs and things like that, I almost always just swipe through. It never really catches my attention very much. Um, in terms of my clients and what I recommend, I think it very much depends on their business. I have a client who is an architect, and she sells architectural plans that are designed. And so basically you hand over the set of plans to a contractor, they build the house that looks exactly the way she designed it in this beautiful way. She's had a lot of success with Etsy ads, I think. Etsy or Pinterest, I can't remember. But essentially, in her niche and in that specific way, ads have been really helpful. So I think that it's important to also just look at the market around you and just ask yourself, am I going to be, like in my case, am I just going to be another business consultant, like showing up on people's feeds? Or am I selling something that is truly unique, niche, and different that will catch people's attention?
That's such a good point, because I think uniqueness is really important in any business. Like, what are the differentiating factors between you and other people, whether it be competition or people that are in a similar space that you're in. I think that's really important. Now, we always talk about staying away from, get rich quick tactics and
Mm-hmm.
playing the long game. And I know that you're in the same camp as me, is that we're in it
Yes.
for the long haul, the long game. What's an important mindset shift that someone can take from listening to this if they have that carrot dangling mindset where they see everything that's going on social media, and whether it's an ad, whether it's a person, and it's that 6 weeks to six figures type of situation where you and I both know, we're both laughing on camera right now, but we know that's not the reality of it. What is the benefit of playing the long game as to chasing all the carrots that are being dangled out on social media?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I have one business rule. I don't have a lot of rules because I think that people need to actually look at their own businesses and see what the best choices and decisions and paths forward are. But my one rule is always stay close to the money. And the reason that I say that is because I so often see people doing things. I'm like, well, how is that going to get you sales? And it's like, well, maybe if I, update my logo, then more people will like it. And then maybe they'll book calls. And then maybe after that call, not to say there's anything wrong with updating your logo, but you have to understand, like I said earlier, the impact of it. And so I think that when you see all those carrots kind of being dangled, which I have also been very attracted to at times, the thing that I always try to remind my clients of and myself of is that most strategies will work if you give them time. And what doesn't work is shifting gears every 5 seconds because you don't give anything time to really grow and, actually have an impact on your business. So very few things have that immediate impact. And so you want to give things time to really see them out and to see if they're working for your business. So I think I get a lot of like, well, what's the right way or what's the wrong way? I generally feel like there's not a whole lot of wrong ways as long as it's done right. But then over time, what you get to decide is what's the best way for my audience to connect with me? What's the best way that brings me the most joy? Those are all choice points that we can make. But theoretically, any approach can and could work if you go all in on it and if you're really willing to like show up and follow through for it. But you do need to give it that time to develop, to improve, and to try it again and again.
I think the rinse, wash, repeat mentality in anything, consistency is key, whether that's working out, whether that's parenting, creating routines for your kids. And that brings up an interesting question that I wanted to ask you. How has becoming a mother, not just being surrounded by a bunch of men all the time, but how has you becoming a mother, in the sense of, the maternal instincts, the nurturing, the challenges that we all face as parents, how has being a parent helped you become a better coach, and consultant, and someone that helps other people grow their business?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like I've gotten much better at one, setting boundaries. But more importantly, knowing that just because someone doesn't like it doesn't mean I didn't do a good job setting the boundary. I hear this narrative a lot of like, I'm not very good at setting boundaries, or I'm not very good at getting people to like respect my boundaries. I'm like, if you were clear about your boundary and they just pushed back, that doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It's annoying, but that is very much something I learned from toddlers. So it's like they will continue to push back. And so I think you get a lot of practice with that repetition. I also think that there's a lot of pressure to talk about our, like, I want to say altruistic reasons for running a business and for growing a business. And one thing that I make anyone who works with me do almost immediately is forget the why, right? That's your marketing why, that's your audience's why, that's important to sell. But let's talk about your personal why. Why are you actually doing this? What actually is the reason? Like for me, I want to, one, not have some artificial cap on my revenue. I also don't want to be judged on my, how much I'm there or not there, or be the person who's like at her kid's school. And I love the flexibility that I can go to my kid's school or I can take them to the doctor. I think every individual has that personal why that's like actually motivating to them. I love the impact that I have on my clients, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't get all of those other benefits out of it, right? And I know that that doesn't sound as pretty and doesn't sound as like, nice, but I think it's definitely my truth, and I think it's a lot of people's truths. And I feel very strongly about being transparent about that, because that needs to be a part of the narrative, especially for anyone who has parenting responsibilities, caregiving responsibilities, or just non-work responsibilities.
So as we start to wind down, I do have one really important question to ask you. But before we get to that, someone that's been listening to this is really resonating, with your message and things that you're talking about. Tell the audience a little bit about what you have going on in your business, but I know you have a workshop coming up and
Yes.
some exciting things. So tell the audience a little bit about what you have going on, A, and B, how can they find out more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a workshop coming up that's called Fuck Manifesting 3 days. Sorry, am I allowed to curse on this show? 3 days to maximize your revenue. So it's a 3-part workshop that's really going to take you through some steps to avoid some of those quick win schemes, but also really think about how to effectively get closer or to or past your revenue goals for 2023. And on the heels of that, I will be opening the doors to my signature program, which is Business Genius Bootcamp, which is a 4-week intensive that is really going to give you the tools you need to build a clear strategy to take your business to the next level and finally hit your goals. So both of those things are coming up. I'm very excited for both. In in the spirit of doing things and that rinse and repeat thing, this is the fourth round of Business Genius Bootcamp, and it just keeps getting better. And that's been really fun to see. So those, you can find me, we'll drop links in the show notes. You can get links to all of those in the show notes. If not, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at my website, FrenchieFerenczi.com. Or you can, and from my website, you can always just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to chat and to connect.
Awesome. And again, as Frenchie mentioned, all of that information about the workshop, about everything that she has going on, will be in the show notes. You're not going to have to look too far in order to find them. So Frenchie, final question before we sign off today. What does success truly mean to you?
I love that question. I think that success is really, it's going to sound very vague, but kind of just embracing the complexity of humanity and being a human, both from the shallower side, which let's just say for me would be like, business class tickets and lots of nice vacations, to always reconnecting to like my core values, which are really my family and my relationships and taking care of my loved ones, and being kind and generous to those around me. And so ultimately, when I'm setting goals, I think about it a little bit like a compass, right? With a few different values around it. And I, at different times, focus more energy on one area or another, but having that choice to decide where I want to focus and why I want to focus there is, to me, like the ultimate feeling of success. Is like, I get to choose because I've created that freedom to choose. So that's choices and fun too.
I think freedom to choose, I guess, would be the best way to summarize all of that, because having that type of freedom is a very, very impactful thing, not just for you as an individual, but the lives of those that you're touching, not from a professional standpoint, but a personal standpoint, your kids, spouse, friends, family, all that stuff. So I could not agree more. Frenchie, so grateful that you came on to the podcast today. And I'm gonna highly, highly encourage anyone that's listening to this episode. You definitely want to go to Frenchie's workshop so you can just be around her energy and what she's all about. And it can only help. It cannot hurt. So Frenchie, thank you again for being here today.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier in the episode, all of the information of how to connect with Frenchie, but also sign up for her workshop, will be in the description of this episode. And wherever you're listening to this to and from, don't forget, please leave us a rating and review. And as a last reminder, for those that are looking to unlock bonus episodes, for those that don't know, every Friday, I release a private bonus episode for the subscription members. So there is a subscription to this podcast now if you choose to want to do it. It's only $2.99 a month. So it's less than, I guess it's like 60 cents a week. It's not much. But again, it will get you a bonus Friday episode with me. There's episodes already in there. So a link to sign up and start your subscription will be in the episode description as well. And you can cancel at any time. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your days. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.